Hi everyone, and welcome to your tarot reading for the week of March the 14th, 2022. This is going to be a really intense week where it is definitely going to be packed with duality in so very many different ways. And because, at least from an astrological perspective, we start the week with a Neptune Sun conjunction, well, that does leave us in a state of deep, deep confusion and perhaps a certain state of worry where we kind of know for certain that we just simply do not have what it takes in any way, shape, and form to figure out or make sense of what it is that's going on out there, why, how, when, and where it's leading us. And unfortunately, this Five of Swords and Three of Cups reversed, well, it does mean a strong, strong, strong mistrust in everything that is being communicated. So that does mean media, that does mean social media. It even means, verbal conversations among friends, people. There is a lot of contradiction out there, and this is where everywhere we try and seek a truth or seek a meaning, we get into even deeper confusion because the symbolism of this Five of Swords. We get into a state of pure mental sabotage because things are simply not adding up to our common sense, and still they're playing out in the world, and we have no choice but to allow it, observe it in total disbelief. So there will be a very, very strong tendency, at least this week, to distance ourselves from news, from information, from social media, from everything that might bombard us with fear and with information which leads to greater confusion, which leads to paradoxes almost, where our mental spheres just simply say it system error, it does not compute. I cannot process this any further. So we will definitely have a very, very strong feeling, and perhaps not just because of what's going on necessarily in the world out there. Maybe this very strong sense of confusion is also going to be reaching us, in very personal ways, from friends, from acquaintances, from our local community, from, that area of life where we do depend, or the situation depends on other people or another person. We are definitely going to be receiving a lot of weirdness, awkwardness, and perhaps not so favorable surprises from other people as well. There is going to be a strong sense of disappointment. There is going to be a strong sense of feeling let down, perhaps not necessarily in a practical or down to earth sense, but perhaps emotionally. This is where we have this tendency to get a little bit disappointed on the moral integrity of other people in our lives. And needless to say, if we just put this in a more collective context, if this would be something on the world stage, well, then all of us are gonna see very, very clearly the lack of moral integrity of basically everyone. And the symbolism of the Three of Cups reversed. Well, what does that feeling actually produce within us? That they are they, meaning that everyone who is a player in whatever is going on out there, and all of its sides and aspects. For some people it's the war, for other people it's other economic problems, troubles, blockages, financial instability, and of the market, of the economy, etc. So everyone has a problem which for them personally is more severe than another crisis, another situation happening in the world simultaneously. Every person can cope much better with certain side of the crisis, while not so much, not so well with a different side. For example, some people are not that afraid of the financial and economic side of things because they know themselves, they have life experience, and they know that they can cope, they know that they can find a way, but perhaps they find it that much harder to cope with the psychological side, with the fear, with the insecurity, with the lack of compassion and peace and harmony. And this is how, at least emotionally speaking, perhaps even unconsciously, we are gonna be splitting apart, as in them, those people who are involved in the chaos, in that which simply doesn't make sense, regardless if they are active players or just sucked in, and there's gonna be us, people who are just caught up in the illusion, caught up in this big chess and tactical game, and we really don't want this to be part of our lives, but have no choice but to observe, contemplate, and when the moment comes, make a choice, make a stand, make a decision. And then we have this Eight of Coins reversed. Well, work stops, normality stops. That probably means that something happens out there which will stop normality. Of course, this probably isn't something that dramatic, that tragic. It might not be something catastrophic or nature. It could just be a moment when everything is too much for everyone, and people just let go of the stability. Things will start falling apart. Maybe, for example, small businesses will just start to close, and not necessarily because they cannot survive physically, but maybe the motivation is totally gone. Maybe people are just surrendering their old lifestyles, they're shedding it off like, a snake or a tarantula exoskeleton. And the scary part is that this process is almost unconscious. It stirs up something deep within our unconscious mind, and we just wake up one day when we just observe ourselves starting to shed. Losing a job, losing material objects, losing total interest in, let's say, socializing in a certain way, doing certain routines and activities which meant something. Perhaps they meant something all of our lives, and suddenly all meaning is gone. So this is where we're unconsciously driven to shed of everything. And when more and more and more individuals, more people will embrace this process, basically, almost like nature's call, a clock that ticks within us, and our energies, our inner configuration just start spelling shed of everything. So a lot of individuals are caught up in this process of shedding, where everything is gone, perhaps house, job, old lifestyle, normality, values. A lot of people are absolutely shedding of everything. They're not even trying to preserve. Somehow they are so very in tune with this inner calling to just purify everything, both psychologically, of course, but materially as well. Breaking connections, isolating from, the usual social sphere, and just instinctually embracing a much greater minimalistic lifestyle where we don't need 10 million objects, we need our basics, and we do value actually our basics much more than anything else. So as I said, this is something that is happening automatically to many, many people simultaneously, one after another, one wave after another, if you will, out there, and this is producing a massive change. And this is the symbolism of this Eight of Coins reversed. We are reaching another moment, another period, another energetic detonation or explosion, if you will, where the world needs a small break, and perhaps this week is gonna be that period when something just stops us for a little bit, when something just stops our efforts, our work, even our shedding, and just gives us a small moment of respite. And this hermit which follows is also very symbolic, because hermit is the symbol of purity. The hermit is seeking spirit connection and our basically role in nature, in life, in existence within both the material and the divine sphere, because those two have to be connected ultimately from scratch, from zero. This is where our only lantern, our only source of light right now is our inner sun. It is basically the light of everything that we embody, the radiance of our spirit. And right now, that is the only thing that we can truly rely upon. It doesn't necessarily matter how things do look on the outside and what that means practically, situationally, in figures and numbers, let's say. This time, what matters the most is what everything that is going on out there means or doesn't mean anything for us personally. Our interpretation of reality and our adaptation to it is what matters that much more. Because, of course, there are troubles sometimes. But this is where there have always been troubles in the world, even when most of the world was at peace, at total peace, prosperity, serenity, everything was working. People were building, constructing their lives, businesses, everything was going smooth. There was still places in the world where there was big trouble, big crisis. People lost everything they had. Hearts were breaking, etc., etc. And that still didn't stop the world from spinning around, from the eternal dream, if you will, to play out itself. So right now, when the world is much more in crisis, when it is much more unstable collectively, well, the show still goes on. We still have to find a way to adapt to this reality and interpret it in such a way where we don't have to be in contradiction or conflict with it. If we choose to be in conflict with the world, we cannot have a happy ending. That's 100%. Because even if the value that contradicts our own, and we see that playing out in the world, even if that really goes against us, still it is not our job to change it. We can try and fulfill our role, but ultimately it is not our choice. There is always a divine reason why something exists in the world the way it does. We might be a force to balance that out and counter it, but we don't have the ultimate saying or the ultimate choice. So there is no reason why we have to make enemies of the world out of ourselves, and there is no way why we should direct our life stories in a more conflictual sense when there is the world and there is us, and the two are never at peace. And ultimately, this is the main symbol of the Temperance card at the Four of Cups. Our faith is stronger than it ever was, and basically the Four of Cups, that which we contemplate right now, not only do we influence reality itself with it, but also we integrate the wisdom of the now into our souls and we make it eternal. So what this means in a more non-symbolic way right now, because the stars themselves give us a lot of spiritual power, they give us a lot of spirit, they activate these aspects within ourselves, and this is a great spiritual empowerment period. We have to use this opportunity and work spiritually, alchemically, magically, metaphysically, or simply psychologically as best as we possibly can. If we have to do work right now, well, that is the type of work that we have to invest all of our energy into, and just allow that to play out before our very eyes, because reality was never ever more reactive to dreams than it is right now, because of this Neptune and Jupiter being in this part of the sky at the same time. And as divine guidance, what the universe is telling us right now is, well, this star card represents the strength of our mind, our mental sphere, mind over matter, of course, and the King of Cups, it is the power of the heart. And when these two are in harmony, and when these two have a shared big goal, a big dream, a big principle, and they infuse our beings with their energies, their specific vibrations at the same time, that is usually the recipe for miracles and really, really big changes and manifestations of the divine. And we do have this, all of this spring period that is about to begin at the very end of the week, to do exactly that, dream our futures and our new meanings, the new meaning of our life stories into existence. So this concludes this week's guidance. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support my channel, you can donate on the PayPal link in the description below. With this being said, I wish everyone a magical week. Until next time, bye for now.